Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Breakfast with Bobby. My name is Christina Bloom, and I am here with my cohort in crime, Bobby Klebano. Want to say hi?
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, we're also here with my good friend, Glenn Boddice. Some of you might know that Glenn has a radio show I could never remember the station name, but I will get it one of these days. But anyway, the show is called From Beyond, and I co-host with him once a month. But today he is joining us for some shenanigans. Glenn is a psychic medium, a spiritualist, and wow, you have a really long list. Like you teach a lot of really cool classes. You're a musician and a music producer. And well, I'm just going to let you take it from here. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. Well, good morning, Christina. Good morning, Bobby. Thank you for having me on your show this morning. So yes, the station that you was referring to is called pulsetalkradio.com.
Thank you.
And the radio show From Beyond with Glenn Boddice is every Monday at 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.
So that's 10 a.m. for those of you living in Midwest US.
Yes,
Yeah.
I presume it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you was right with what you were saying. Pretty similar to, I would say, yourself, Bobby, and yourself, Christina. I wear many hats, although I haven't put it on today. But yes, a spiritual medium, a radio presenter, podcaster, teacher, drummer, singer, producer, musician, and a dad. That's probably the hardest job of all of those
Right?
put together.
You bet.
Yeah. You're a dad of 2 teenage daughters too. Like that's a lot.
Yes. I think that's why the hair had to go. It fell out.
Well,
I get that.
truth be told, I have two
Right.
boys, and so growing up, it looks really good, but if you look at, I'm really pretty gray in there. The kids have a way of teaching you stuff, don't they? You will probably never learn more from anyone else other than your children.
Right.
Definitely. They're the best teachers, aren't they?
Yes, and boy, do they reflect back your behavior.
Oh, yeah. I've just experienced that with my eldest, who's 18. She's got a car now. She's driving. She's 18. You can't tell her anything.
Of course.
And I'm thinking, hang on a minute. This looks familiar. It looks like karma is repaying its check back to me.
Right.
I feel that with every fiber of my being. I do. I feel
when my kids were growing up, boys, and it seems like what one didn't think of, the other one did. They were quite creative and horrifyingly creative almost. And I often said to myself, gosh, I wonder what they're going to get from me. I wonder, because it never really showed up for years and years and years. Now, all of a sudden, things are starting to show up. And I thought, oh, do I really want that? Now it's reflecting everything. It's a surprise.
Too late.
Yeah, right. They look pretty smart.
They look smart. And then sometimes you're just like, you used to have really good ideas. What happened?
Right. Yeah. Well, my oldest is 40 now. He just turned 40. And I got to tell you, to watch them all grow up was a little bit unnerving. And then when they get to that age, I'm just so damn proud of them both that they're really successful kids and smart beyond smart. I'm pretty sure they got about that much from me, and maybe they, by fertilization or something, they got the rest of it, but and maybe from, some historical genealogy, they got some other stuff, but it's an interesting process watching your children, trying to be, an observing teacher, but also, and I admittedly was because they're boys, I corrected them all the time, and sometimes that doesn't work well either, So you have to be their best advocate, but be smart enough to know when to stand back. And sometimes I wasn't, sometimes you just, well, they went to Catholic school. God only knows what happened there,
Wow.
Well,
I've heard the rumors, but
it was
I've never been to one.
I haven't either.
I went to Catholic school, and it was arduous, and we had nuns, and we went to church every day. And I swore to God that I wasn't going to do that to my children. And because we lived in the city of Milwaukee, they would have been put in a public school that was really a very high crime area. Everybody
Yeah.
came from miles around and stuff. So our only alternative was to put them in a private school, and Catholic was, I kind of knew how to deal with that. I did a lot of interviewing and stuff. And so the problem I feel with schools is that when your children are talented, when they are either above the line or a little below the line, they don't know how to take care of that. They only know how to do the status quo. So those
Yeah.
kids that are incredibly smart and need a little bit more of a challenge, they don't get that other than, the stick telling them, they're wrong and they're bad and they're this, that, and the other thing. So, um, note to self, unfortunately, he's 40 now. I'm glad he's out of grade school and Catholic school, and they went to mass once a week, which was a whole lot better than every day.
I bet.
There you go.
I'm
yeah.
reminded when you're describing that, I've got the image of, do you remember the film, The Blues Brothers?
Oh,
And
yes.
the two brothers went to Catholic school,
Yes.
and they called their teacher the Penguin.
Yes.
I just had that vision of that nun there at the top of
Right.
the stairs.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
I had two boys as well, but mine were not close together in age. There was a big age gap between my kids. So it was like having two only children, and they didn't
okay.
even need help getting into trouble. Just
No,
both of
they
them by
don't.
themselves. They could
Yeah.
just, yeah. And
It-
my older one got into a lot of trouble. My younger one didn't until he turned 18, and then it was like all bets are off, but before that, he was relatively well behaved. It was rough in high school because he didn't like school
Yeah, it's
until,
hard.
yeah, until he found auto mechanics. And then he could just like pretty much live there
Yeah,
in
right.
the mechanic
Yeah.
area. So, or the shop area. But
Yeah.
I find it interesting that we have two women who raise boys and a man who raises girls.
Yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles,
That's
isn't
the
it?
way it crumbles. Exactly. I know. Yeah. And
I'm-
my kids did not go to Catholic schools, but my older one did go to a charter school, which is a little bit different. It's project based and not curriculum based so much. Like they wrote their own curriculum based on the projects that they did. So every project
Oh.
that they did had to include all of the subjects. It had to include English and writing and math and history and all of the topics, all of those subjects had to be incorporated into whatever project they were doing.
I
So
like that. That
Yeah.
sounds perfect.
I
You could
know it
learn
does.
a lot from that. Yeah.
It was perfect for him. Absolutely.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And unfortunately, they didn't have charter schools when my kids were little, but
Yeah. Well, this was when he was in high school.
I see.
So the last 2 years of high school, he went to a charter school. So that was really
So-
good. I like the format that they used there.
It's interesting that.
Yeah, that's really, it seems like a really good thing. And then you hopefully have teachers that can promote all of that and hit all of those subjects and teach them a proper way to incorporate that. That's
Right.
always the thing to
Yeah.
be able, to take all of those pieces of knowledge and pull it in and be able to say, okay, I got the sucker stick now. I know what I'm doing,
Right, right. And it also gives them a reason to learn it. I
Yes.
mean, it's like I remember sitting in math classes in high school, and there was always one kid in the back of the class, same kid every day. When are we ever going to use this?
I
But he
like
had a
it.
point. He had a point.
Yeah.
I've never used any of that.
But if someone were to ask you now, you
No,
would
I
know.
don't remember any of the algebra. I don't remember any of
I
the
wouldn't.
geometry.
Me either.
It's not
Even if
even
I-
part of it. Go ahead,
Even if
Glenn.
I took my shoes and socks off, maths, no, me and maths don't mix.
Exactly, same.
Yeah.
Because we're creative types.
Yes, I would
Yeah.
say, yeah.
It would
Yeah.
be so great to have teachers that would recognize your strengths rather than, again, putting you in a pool of people and, that one just sort of pops out in a way that maybe is not so constructive. or the other one that pops out. I was in choir. My choir was invited to go to the to sing for the bicentennial we sang on the White House lawn. But
Wow.
unless you were in that choir, unless you had an interest in doing that, other kids didn't get that opportunity. So I have a handful of nieces, and I was really afraid that my second child was going to be a girl and she was going to be like me, and then I'd have to kill her because that was just not good. But
Surely you're
I
not
had that
bad.
same nightmare. I had the same nightmare.
and I often say, boy, am I glad I didn't have girls. So I'm going to ask you, how is it raising girls?
It's very interesting because I'm a single dad, so I've had to be a mum and a dad rolled into one.
Right.
And so I would say I'm quite balanced, masculine and feminine energies because of that. But yeah, obviously very sensitive to them. But yes, you've got to have rules and regulations and, and yeah, it's a balancing act, I would say. But having viewed, it always makes me smile actually, because I can hear the music blaring from their bedrooms.
Yes.
And I think, I recognize that song. And all of the songs I'm hearing are the music that I'm into. And I'm thinking, yes, I got something right.
Right.
So they're listening to Alice Cooper and Motorhead and things like that. I'm like, yes.
Awesome.
So, yeah, to be a dad of two girls, I would say you do worry, especially with the eldest, with her being 18 and driving, and she doesn't come home till after midnight with no I'm going to be late, I'm here, I'm there. You just have to trust your gut that everything's going to be all right for her. And so that can be a little bit concerning, as I'm sure it can for mums as well, But generally speaking, I feel very blessed to be a dad. When I was growing up, I would have never imagined I was going to be a dad to two girls.
Yeah.
I was more concerned about, music and going out and playing concerts and things like that. And yeah, so when my daughters came along, it was like, yeah, this feels right. This is the right time, and yeah, I just feel very blessed to have been there from day one with them. The very time they was born. So yeah,
That's awesome.
thoroughly enjoy it.
I was really afraid of having girls because we live in in a society, and I don't know if it's the same in England, but I am terrified for girls here. I am terrified for their safety. Like
Well,
there is, you know, I don't know, like I said, I don't know if it's the same in England, but I just feel like there are so many more dangers for girls. You know what I mean?
Yes, definitely. That's always in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Obviously when they're out and about, but generally speaking, they travel in packs, with their
Yeah.
friends and everything. And usually they tell everybody where they're going, what time they're leaving. They're usually quite good. It's only recently with my eldest that obviously she's 18. I can do what I want, got my own car. This is where that dynamic has changed slightly. But
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, it wouldn't be advisable for, a young lady to be walking out after midnight, even in the UK.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, like I
without a
won't walk at
chaperone.
night by myself. I
Yeah.
won't do it. Yeah, I won't go out by
Oh,
myself.
okay.
I won't walk outside by myself. I'll drive anywhere, but I won't walk outside by myself at
Yeah,
night,
okay.
you know?
So I have a question. When a couple of years ago, when COVID was active, how was it in the UK for you?
Um, it was like a holiday camp. I'm joking. No, it was very transformative, as I imagine it was for you guys as well, in the fact that everything had to go on pause, all of your projects, all of your vacations, meeting family, everything had to go on pause. And even my two daughters' schooling, you couldn't go to school. In the beginning, they wasn't even getting any correspondence from the school. They were just left. And so they missed out on, I would say, a huge chunk of their education for about 6 to 7 months of no education there because of it. But luckily enough, probably like you two, I work online. So for me personally, the only thing that changed really is that where I was gigging with the band, playing concerts all over the place, that obviously had to stop. And it's almost as if the world of spirit knew this was coming, because all of a sudden my spiritual work and the clients seemed to fill that bridge and take over. And so even though everybody was at home, I was working from dusk till dawn. So
Oh,
I didn't have a rest like most people were doing. I was working
Yeah.
indoors. But there was a lot of, as I'm sure in the USA, there was a lot of frightened people.
yeah.
And a lot of these people, no disrespect to them, but they were hanging on to everything that the media were telling them in that scenario.
Yeah.
And obviously that was there to generate a response from them so that they could bring in something to, without mentioning it.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
And yes, no, I
That would
won't
get
do
us flagged. We don't want that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, so for me personally, I just trusted my intuition with it, and went on that. Rather, I didn't watch the news.
Mm,
Um, my only form of interaction was probably by the social media platforms. I'd only get to find out things via that, not
mhm,
because I'm looking for it, just because it's always there.
Yeah.
mhm.
But
Yeah.
it was very unusual how quiet it was during that period of time. And it was very strange to see people's behavior changing. You know, people would look at you like a potential threat, and it was silent even when you were going out to get your groceries.
Yes.
No one would speak to one another. It wasn't a very nice period of time.
Right.
Yeah.
But looking at the plus side of that, you know, it's been very transformative. It's given people that time to reflect, to think, actually, I don't want to do that job anymore. I
Mhm.
don't want to do this anymore. Why have I been giving my energy away all this time to something I don't enjoy? And it allowed people to go within and clear that headspace so there was available for inspiration to come in. And the amount of people I've known that have changed not only careers but their lifestyle as a
Mhm.
result of what happened over the last 4 years. Yeah, I would say the good has far outweighed the bad.
Mhm.
Yeah.
People had a choice. They realized that they really didn't need to do what they were doing, and they hated it so much they didn't want to go back to it. And a lot of people, I think, actually created new things out of things they never thought would be able to be created, and a lot of entrepreneurial effects came out of that. And so I'm curious about your mediumship and your spirituality and stuff. Did you see a
Okay.
common theme coming through of how many, the people that were coming to you for help? Was there a common theme there about how many more, what was the commonality there?
I would say during that period of time, there was a lot of frightened people. And obviously, with being told you can't go here, you can't do that, people was starting to feel boxed in, like a rat in the corner of a room, for
Sure.
want of a better of an analogy. Um, but yeah, so I was finding a lot of people needed that sense of hope. They needed something to look forward to. They needed some peace, some solace, and even some like mental tuition, if you like, where he was just holding that space for them to speak so that they could get things off their chest.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I was finding that spirit would bring in the information that they needed at that
Yeah.
moment in time. So there was, to answer your question, there was a common theme running throughout that period. A lot of people were frightened and they just needed that sort of glimmer of hope, something to focus on so that they could get out of that situation.
I
Mhm.
had a very similar experience with that too. That's what a lot of my clients were going through as well. And so, yeah, I had this, it was a lot more listening than talking at that point. You know, we're just letting people talk it out, letting people talk it out, let them vent, let them get, like you said, get it off their chest. And prior to that, I had an office. I had a brick and mortar office, and it sat empty for 10 months. We had just signed a lease. We had
Whoa.
just signed a 1-year lease. So for the first 10 months, we were still paying on the office. When the lease came up, we just let it expire and went completely online from there. And it has really expanded. I mean, I met you during that time, you know?
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Yeah. So it has really expanded my world in many ways, but it's also expanded my business significantly because
Yeah.
I can reach more people than a brick and mortar office in little Podunk, Wisconsin, you know? So it was really, for me, it was beneficial. I think for a lot of people, it was beneficial because it did give us that opportunity. And I don't know if you have the conspiracy theory stuff going on over there, but we sure have it here. And the
Oh, yes.
government did this, and the government, and I'm like, the US government did not create a fake illness to rule the whole world because it was everywhere, you know, but trying to get people to understand that was just, you know, over their heads or something. I don't know. But I have come to the theory that, you know, if there is a divine being or a I don't know, maybe there's like a group of divine beings or whatever, or higher beings, I don't know. But if you're on this committee and there's a whole planet not behaving themselves for a very long time, how do you get everyone's attention at once? You know? So, I mean, it's like, that's just something that came to me one time when I was doing a reading, and it made sense to me. Like, okay, the whole planet has to stop. It has to stop. It has to go inward and start listening to themselves because everything was so blown out of control. And it's still blown out of control, but it did kind of, I think, speed up the ascension on Earth by being like that. And I mean, that's just my theory. I'm not saying it's fact. I'm just saying that's my theory. But, you know, it did. It made people stop and go inward. It's like, you know, it's like a parent going, sit down, be quiet. I don't want to hear you talk for a while. Like, just, yeah.
I think it was also interesting that because people did that pause, put their lives on pause, it made them more open to spiritual matters and also more accepting of them. I remember a time in the early 1990s when if you was to speak about anything like this, you would get lynched. Socially, you would get lynched, and you wouldn't live that down for many years. And so now there's more of an acceptance of that, which is very welcoming.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And this isn't really a topic we cover much because it's one of those things that can get you flagged. But you know what? If it gets us flagged, it gets us flagged, whatever. The C word is not something we're supposed to even say on YouTube. So we're supposed to avoid that word. But I think it's okay. I mean, we are definitely having an intelligent conversation about the effects of
Well,
what's
I think a
happened.
lot of good came out of it. A lot of people did more, like you said, the more spiritual, they were able to search inside, gain some more talent, and really prodded themselves to be more creative and use all the resources they had. And in that respect, the world is not the same. It will never be the same.
No.
And just
And
the
I
fact
think
that
that's a
we
good thing.
learned, yes, just the fact that we learned more about who we are and what we have access to in terms of ourselves, I think that's a big deal. The compassion, I think, that was gained through all of this was interesting. I think it was a big thing. So I'm curious. So you are a musician, and
Yes,
how
yeah.
online gigs then? What were you doing?
No, during that time we had time out, so we had to cancel all the bookings, and we all kept in touch as a band, you know, socially online,
Sure.
and we were throwing new ideas into the set,
Mhm.
learn this song, learn that song, because we could all learn it individually.
Yeah.
And that was it. We was just with a wing and a prayer was doing all of that. And the thing was, at the time, we just invested in a van, because our previous van and all the equipment got stolen. And
Oh,
so we managed to cobble together the funds to get a second-hand van, to get a PA system. And I think we did 2 gigs before everything was told to shut down. And so the van that we'd just got had to be sold. We couldn't fund it, the work wasn't there. Pretty similar to you, Christina, with the building. So we had to get rid of that. And when we did start up again, we had to again build up again. But in terms of music, I'm involved with a project called Universal Alchemy, with a few colleagues of mine, and we create spiritual music like Native American Indian music, chanting, and also we've done, I think we're on our 3rd album, moving on, producing our 4th one at the moment, and each album has a different feel. So the first album was like Native American Indian, the second was more sort of, I would say, commercial, a bit like Fleetwood Mac, that sort of style, a bit sort of folky orientated. The third album was completely dance music, but with spiritual undertones and the message in the lyrics. And then this 4th album that we're working on is, it's more sort of stripped back down to basics, like a country sort of acoustic album. But to go back to your original question, the reason why I brought that up is because although we couldn't go out there and perform, we were creating these albums, recording and producing them. And so we was very, very busy, and we was doing videos and things like that to promote some of that work. So I still managed to get that musicality out of me in that respect, but there's no greater feeling than performing live. So
yeah.
it was the next best thing for me.
Well,
Yeah.
how often do you do that?
Usually now, what concerts, gigs?
Yeah.
Well, I would say again, we've been in the band, we've been struck with a bit of an issue because the singer's he's had a very severe illness. So he's had to have operations and lots of treatment. He's still going through that. So we decided that we'll take a year out, and then again we'll take it from there. So at the moment I'm producing, still producing in the studio. I get that musicality out of me. I have an electric drum set upstairs that every morning, it's in my bedroom every morning. I can't help myself. I get out of bed. I'm sat on this drum kit in my boxer shorts for 10 minutes, just tapping a few beats out, and then I've got it out of me for the day. Then I can relax and go about my business. So it's very much an itch that you need to scratch for me, the music. And if I didn't do that, I think I would be tapping on the chair arms, or I'd be singing in the middle of the supermarket. I'd have to get it out of me some way.
And there's nothing wrong with that either.
No.
Yeah.
And
Well,
if
this
you
is
go if you go to Glenn's Facebook page, there's a video of him drumming that was from what, 2019, 2018?
Oh
Something
yes,
like that. That you
2019. Yeah.
Yeah, you recently posted it like in the last couple of weeks. He's amazing. Like
Oh,
he's
thank you.
Cool.
amazing. If you go to his Facebook page, you just scroll down till you find it. It blew my mind. Like I was absolutely astounded.
So the drum for you in the morning, that's your sadhana, right? Your spiritual practice every morning. Rather that some people meditate, some people do kriya, some people, do art. You drum. I think that's a fabulous thing.
Well, I do meditate before I work, and to prepare me and set the intentions with my guides for the day, and also to clear your energy and raise your energy. So I still do that, but this is before I've even gone into the bathroom. I'm on the drum kit for 5 or 10 minutes, just gently tapping away. My children are in bed, so I don't want to do it too loud.
I was
And it
going to
just
say your
gets,
kids must really love that.
Yeah.
Time to
It-
get
it
up. Boom, boom.
just gets it out of the system, And then when I'm dropping my youngest off at school on the drive there, we have music on. I'm tapping on the steering wheel, it's a virtual drum kit as I'm driving. So yeah, I have to get it out my system.
I love that. My dad was a drummer, so I grew up with a
Wow,
drum set in the
really?
dining room. Yeah. And there was no greater sin in my house than to touch dad's drum set.
Oh,
Like you just
too
don't do it. You just don't. Yeah. Off limits. There might as well have been a yellow tape around it. Like, yeah,
Definitely.
that was a no-no. Yeah.
I'm with him on that one because when you've set the drums up at a concert, at a gig,
Mm-hmm.
obviously there's lots of people that are curious about the drums, and suddenly everybody in that venue becomes a drummer. Oh, I can play
Yes.
drums. Can I have a go? It's like, step back, like your
Yeah.
dad, Christina.
Yeah.
Step back off the stage.
Yes.
How very dare you?
Yeah.
I used to be a volunteer usher at a theater here called the Riverside, and we had a lot of music people there, big names, Santana and all that kind of stuff. We
Oh,
had
wow.
ZZ Top. I was
Oh,
fascinated by the
Right.
fact that there were 3 guys made all of that noise, but in the
yeah.
center of the stage, and he had glass all the way around, plexiglass all the way around. What is up with that? Is it so only he can hear it, or it just makes a
What?
boom when it explodes out of the top? What's up with that?
Yeah, what it's for is for separation. Obviously, you've got all the backline, as they call it, which is all your amplification. All of that is making a mashup sound on the stage, even though they're mic'd up. And then imagine all that swooshing of those amplifiers. It kind of swallows up the sound of the cymbals. So when the drummer hits the cymbal, he won't hardly hear it. And then the engineer out front who's miking it up, because the amplifiers are too loud, he won't get a clear signal from that cymbal that he's mic'd up. So the plexiglass just keeps it nice and tidy so he can get a clearer signal on that on the cymbals.
Is that a personal thing? How come all bands don't do it?
I would say it'd probably be a personal thing. Not every band does it. If they were very, very loud on stage,
They were very, very
then
loud. Those 3
because
guys made a lot of noise. It was wild. It was really
because
amazing.
a lot of the bands, as a rule of thumb, a lot of the engineers front of house, they like to get the amps. They don't have to have them cranked up really loud because they can do all that on the main speakers. And so I dare say ZZ Top were old school. They liked it loud. They liked to feel it, so
Yeah.
that would have had an impact on that sound, I should imagine.
So what about the bands that have more than one drum set? Santana's got 2. There's a couple of them that have 2 and 3. How do they, what's up with that? I'm lending to you because I don't understand it.
You have really good
why
questions.
why would they have 2 drummers? Well, it creates a fatter sound, a bigger sound. It's more dynamic, even though the drummers genuinely can't speak. There's an artist called Adam and the Ants from the 1980s.
Yes.
He's the same. He has 2 drummers, and it gave that style of music their unique sound. It gave it that pulsing sound, thicker, fatter. Also, to watch that on a stage, to watch 2 drummers doing the exact same thing, it's very hypnotizing. It's very enchanting, isn't it? So it adds to the visual element as well. But in terms of having a 3rd drummer, I dare say that would have been percussion, such as bongos, and tambourines and all of that sort of thing to fill in the spaces between the other 2 drummers. But yeah, that's the only way I could see why they did it. Either that, or they had a spare drummer, and they felt sorry that spare drummer was sat on the bench. So they brought him out on stage as well.
Like a baseball player. You sit out.
Yeah. Come on. All right, then bring your kit.
Okay, you can play.
We're far enough ahead. You can come out now.
Poor little drummer's probably sat there in the back, twitching away. Let me out, and Uncle Scooby, like Scrappy Doo.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So is that all you not is that all, but is the only instrument you play in the band the drums, or do you have other instruments?
I do backing vocals as well in the
Oh,
band, but originally I started out from a musical family. My parents were in a brass band, and
oh,
so my dad's side of the family, it went back generations because round here it's a mining community. And so with every mining community, they had their own brass band and they would have competitions against each brass band and all of that. And you'd travel around the UK doing it. So my dad's family did that for generations. And then when it came to me and my sister coming into the family, it was kind of anticipated and expected that we would follow the family lineage and play a cornet or a, you know. And so anyway, I started out, I'd say I'd be about 4,
oh,
learning the cornet. And I remember my dad getting very frustrated with me, like, ugh, because I wasn't into that, you know, even at
yeah.
that age. And anyway, so he says, well, why don't you try another instrument? So I tried the trombone. And so I learned to play the trombone. I kind of like that because it was a bit of an alternative brass instrument. But the style of music wasn't for me. And so I went against all of their advice and I wanted to be a drummer. I was always fidgeting, always tapping since a young child.
Yeah.
And my parents said, you're not having a drum kit in this house. We're not getting you a drum kit. So me being a stubborn Capricorn at a young age, I went out on a paper round delivering papers for years. And I saved up all that money. And I knew somebody that was selling a beat up old drum kit from like the 1920s. It was really held together by string. But to me, it was a drum kit. I didn't care.
Yeah.
So I bought that, brought it back home to my mum and dad's displeasure. And I think because I'd put all that effort in, they eventually allowed it to come into the house.
Mhm.
And so from that moment onwards, I just jammed, listened to records, and self taught by listening to some of the great bands like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin,
Mm,
AC/DC,
yeah.
ZZ Top, like you've just mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just did that and then eventually ended up in high school bands, as you would call them. And then that moved on to touring bands and tribute bands. And it's just been that mainly. And then I went into music production as well
Who's the
alongside
most
that.
famous musician you ever met?
Oh, crikey. Famous one. I'm trying to think now. There's a band called Bad Manners, which are like a ska band from the 1980s. And we once did a supporting gig with them. And so we got to hang out with the band. They were really nice people. I'm trying to think, who else have I met? Oh, this is yeah, I actually recorded a single. I didn't meet any of these artists there, but recorded a single with a band. And it was in a studio in Chelsea, I believe it was, in London. And you've heard of a band from the 80s called Culture Club with
Oh,
Boy
Oh,
yeah.
George.
yes.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
they recorded their first album with Karma Chameleon on in that studio.
Mhm.
And Eric Clapton had recorded there, and
Oh
also
boy.
Deep Purple had recorded there, and Manic Street Preacher. So unfortunately, I didn't meet any of those, but I stood and performed in that holy ground where they once did.
Yeah.
I understand that. I
Oh,
understand it. Yeah.
actually, I've got a really funny story. When we was recording that, it might be a little bit cringy, so brace yourselves. So
Is there
basically,
such a thing?
well, you'll find out in a minute.
Okay.
So basically, in that studio, we was recording that single. We was very excited because we'd just got a management deal, and this management deal had set up for us to record a single in that recording studio. And so we was down for a long weekend. And day one, we recorded all of the music, and day two was production. And so after day one, we worked really hard. in the night time, we all decided was going to go out for some ales, some beer, and had an Indian takeaway. Okay. Just setting that scene. So day 2, we was all a little bit hungover, a little bit worse for wear, but still excited underneath all of that. And boys being boys, there was a chill out room upstairs above the control room where we was mixing the studio. And one of the guys, the guitarist, crashed out on this sofa. And so everybody in the band, we'd had an Indian meal, so it was all a little bit windy, if you know what I'm saying. We decided it'd be fun to take it in turns and let some gas go on the guitarist that had passed out on the settee. Anyway, it was my turn. It was my turn to go over and share some of my love with him in that respect. And just at that moment, the door opened, and this little guy, he had big curly hair, he came walking in. He was wearing a ski jacket. He was swearing. He zipped this ski jacket over his nose, and he was calling us from pigs to dogs. And he was stamping around. He went out of the door. He wasn't impressed at all. Of course, we found it hilarious. We was like in his early 20s. We was howling with laughter. Anyway, we went back down to the control room where we was mixing, and the engineer producer said, "I can't believe you guys. What have you been doing?" Anyway, we told him, and he says, "Do you know who that is?" I said, "No, we don't know. This little guy with curly hair." He says, "That's only the studio owner, and also the studio owner happens to be Mungo Jerry." I don't know if you've heard of that guy.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
The Summertime. In the summertime. When
Yes.
he wrote and sung that, and it was him that got to smell my guff. Claim to fame.
Oh my gosh. I am so
yeah.
glad we had you on the show, because nobody else gets that story.
Well, I have shared it a few times, to be honest.
Right. I get that. But like, no one in our audience would expect that story. So that's
Oh
fun.
my God, that's hilarious. Jeez.
Yeah, that is funny. That is just
I would say you needed to be there, but then again, if you were there, you'd need a gas mask.
Yeah.
That explains the cup your daughters bought you.
Yes. That's what was it?
Please do
The
explain.
greatest. They've got me a cup for Father's Day. I think it was last year. The greatest farter in the world.
Okay.
I love
And
that
then
your kids have your sense of humor. I do. I love that.
yeah. And then this year, my daughter got me for Christmas a mug. And I don't know if you're familiar with the supermarket chain called Aldi.
Yes.
I don't know if you have that over there.
We have
Oh,
Aldi here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they bought me a mug with that logo on. It looked exactly the same, except it said Baldy on it, and it's got a silhouette of a guy with a bald head.
Your girls are the apple didn't fall far from the tree, I see.
Yeah.
No. Not at all.
And that's a good thing. Good for you. Gosh.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know I've seen pictures of them, and you can just see like they've got some spark going on in their eyes. They've got a lot of whimsy. Whimsy is the word I'm looking for.
Whimsy.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah.
Well, my youngest daughter, she's still at school. She's due to leave this year, and she's going to art school, but she wants to be a tattoo artist. She's really good at her artwork, and so she's going to be exploring that. My eldest daughter, 18, she's already at college, and she's learning English, history, media studies as well. She's very good at writing, and she's a bookworm. Like I'm obsessed with DVDs and music, she's obsessed with books, and she's got collection after collection. And yeah, so
I love that.
Yeah,
Wow.
very proud of them.
You never have enough books, do you? You just never do.
For me, it'll take me a lifetime to read 2 books. With being dyslexic,
Oh,
I
yeah.
get so frustrated. I do like it when they brought out the audiobook.
Right.
I thought that was a stroke of genius because you can do that, listen to that while you're doing other things.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that works a lot better for me. But
Yeah.
I
Those-
do like books.
So with your book, you said it's
Yeah,
available as an audiobook. Is that your voicing? Did you voice
it
the
is. Yeah, and
Okay.
the way that happened, like I say, with being dyslexic, it takes me probably 3 times as longer to formulate these things together. So my guides were putting that feeling in me that they wanted to birth a book through me. And so I asked them, well, okay, well, how would you like to do this? And they suggested to channel it. And I said, okay, but if we're channeling it, I would like it to become an audio book. And I don't want a different spirit communicator coming through every time we channel because it would sound out of whack
Oh,
as an
Right,
audio book.
right.
So I said, if you can channel the information in my voice, that would be wonderful. So that's how the book started. Just sessions every week of channeling, and all of the audio there was then taken in the studio. It was some of the gaps in the audio. Obviously, when you're channeling, there's little breaks before the next piece of information. So I just took out all of those dead spaces, produced the sound there so it's palatable, listenable, professionally sounding. And then from those, I then transcribed that into text, which then was edited and formatted into book form. So I did it the other way round.
Okay.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and for me, that worked out a lot better.
What's the name of your book?
Awakening the Light.
Did I miss something? Did we talk about this and I'm
No,
defunct at
we
my
have not talked
listening
about it.
skills? Okay.
No, your listening skills are fine, Bobby. You're good. We
Uh,
go ahead, Glenn, tell us about it.
yeah.
Okay, so like, as I've said, it was 100% channeled from spirit, and it all came when I kept getting this itch I needed to scratch. And so I listened, they gave me some direction, and then I made space once a week to have time with spirit so they could channel a couple of chapters through at a time. And the book is basically about how you can discover yourself as an individual, how you can connect in with your divinity, also how you can create your own heaven on earth in your present moment consciousness. And so it's all about the unfoldment of you. There's elements within the book that talks about manifestation and how you can create your own reality and bring things into form, and also healing, acceptance of who you are, doing the inner healing and letting portions of yourself go. But what I did find interesting, particularly, is the fact that Spirit said this, and it's in the book. And they said, with all the energy within the words, within the text that they brought through, channeled through, there is a healing vibrational code within that. And they said, upon anybody that's listening to it or holding the actual tangible copy of the book, they will instantly feel that healing energy without even reading the book. They will
Oh,
feel
wow.
those codes. And so I found that fascinating. I've given it to a few of my friends to see if they could, without explaining it, and they all said, "Oh, that feels really nice. That feels
Where
really
can you get the
calming."
book? Can you off of Amazon or where are you?
From my website.
Okay.
Um, so am I okay to quote it?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. So it's www.glennboddice.spiritualmedium.com.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So, one more question.
Yeah.
How did you learn? When did you learn that you were a channel? How did that come about?
Right. Well, for me, I kind of always felt I was different, even when I was in junior school. I was one of those kids that would, when they're choosing somebody to play a soccer game or something, I was the guy still left on the line waiting to be picked for the sides.
Okay.
I was that person. Anyway, and so I always felt a little bit different, but it wasn't up until I was, I would say, 18 years old, where I was having rather peculiar sort of inclinations to pick up a pen and paper. And when I did that, I don't know why, I just picked it up and I held that pen in my hand. The next minute, my hand was doing automatic writing. And so all of these messages were coming through. I couldn't hear anything. I was just reading it almost as if I was looking at a printer printing, and I was reading it as it was coming out. And I was pretty excited, freaked out, and overwhelmed all in that same moment. And then, so obviously, I was really intrigued to do more. And as I was doing more, I began to hear the voice, the spirit voice in my head, telling me the words before they were forming onto the paper. So I developed that clear audience started to progress. And then the automatic writing turned into psychic art. So I then channeled faces of the departed, and my spirit guides were coming through in artwork form. And so it reached a point with the clear audience where I couldn't get a moment in my headspace to myself. And it became overwhelming. I couldn't sleep at night because of all of this chatter. Going to college and work was very, very hard. And then what did freak me out was when I was seeing white tunnels at the bottom of my bed, a bit like the tunnel that you see in a Warner Brothers cartoon at the beginning. I was seeing white smoky rings. And at the end of that tunnel, I was seeing thousands of different faces who I had no knowledge of. I've never met them or never seen them. And I experienced the feeling of feeling paralyzed when I was going through that experience. So I couldn't move any part of my body other than my eyes. And obviously I was petrified. And it got to a stage where I opened up to my parents. And as it happened, they knew somebody that went to a spiritualist church. And so they arranged for me to meet them. And upon meeting them, they picked up on the vibrations around me. They explained what was happening. They said, you've got no control over it at this moment. You are psychic. You are a channel for spirit. But they're just so excited to come through you that they're not giving you a break, and you've got no idea how to control it. So they told me about the chakra system, and they took me on a journey to meet my spirit guide. And upon meeting my spirit guide and having that level of respect and control, I then started to calm that bombardment of interactions in my mind there, which enabled me, being 18, to do what 18-year-olds do, which I was quite grateful for, going out partying, hanging with my friends. But as you know, when spirit wants to work with you, they will only give you a little bit of a respite and then they'll come back. And so that's what kept on happening until I said again, like it reached a point where lots of different accidents were happening and things were stopping me in my pathway, so that I had to face it. And so at that point I said, okay then. And I started to go to spiritualist church. And upon going there, I was then invited to attend a development circle. And it was in that development circle where I started to fine tune the spiritual gifts and hone in and just develop the craft there, being a spiritual medium. And so it all generally started, I would say, from being a young child, but the majority of it hit me when I was 18.
Wow. So do you teach people now how to find their guides and assist them in spiritual development?
I do, yes. It's something I've been doing for a few years, and I feel very humbled and privileged to do it because I'm giving back. I'm passing on that baton that was passed on to me. And back in the early 90s, late 90s, I would say, when I was doing that work, it was very taboo subject. You couldn't find anybody to give you that teaching, to give you that support. You had to be you had to be invited. It was one of invite onlys. You couldn't just join a group online.
Right.
And so yes, I do. I teach people how to develop right from the very beginning of just being sensitive and taking up to doing either, I think you call it gallery work over there, or
Mhm.
we call it mediumship, platform mediumship over here, and also doing the paranormal investigation mediumship work there as well. I cover all the facets
Mhm.
with the spiritual development, and like I say, I feel very blessed to be chosen by Spirit to do that, to pass that baton on, to bring up another generation of mediums.
And
That's
so people
awesome.
can find you through that very same website that you just gave, right? Do you want to give it to people again?
Yes, they can find me www.glennboddicespiritualmedium.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Glenn Boddice Spiritual Medium. I'm on Instagram as well. I'm on TikTok. Reluctantly, I'm on TikTok. My daughter's dragged me on that one. So
I'm
come on,
reluctant
Dad.
about it too. I get that. Yeah.
Like, come on, Dad. You know, only granddads go on Facebook. I was like,
Mm.
what?
Yeah.
So reluctantly, I'm on TikTok as well. But yeah, so you
I
can
am
find
so
me there.
I'm thrilled. I am just so grateful that you came on to our show. You have done a fabulous job, and it's been such a blast talking to you, and we'd love to talk to you again.
Oh, thank you, Bobby. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Christina.
You're welcome.
Really
Thank you for
appreciate
coming
this.
on. I know I really enjoy working with you. I know working on From Beyond with you is a lot of fun. And I knew that once I got you on here, it was just going to be silliness to begin with. So it's all good because
Of course.
the world needs more silliness, in my opinion.
I
So
agree.
It does, definitely.
Well,
yeah.
you're such a kind man, and we so appreciate your time and effort today. So thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much
you.
for being
Yeah,
here.
thank you. And before we sign off,
Yes.
subscribe, hit the notification bell, share with your friends. But thank you for watching and listening, and we will see you next time on Breakfast with Bobby.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Glenn.
Bye.
Bye-bye.